Welcome back to the kitchen. If you couldn't tell already, I am feeling quite festive, so I wanted to share another recipe from my new book that's out for pre-order right now, The Plant-Based Diet for Beginners. Today we are going to be sharing the Homestyle Lentil Loaf with my maple balsamic glaze, and that's on page 94, but let's go ahead and get started with today's recipe. I have been getting a lot of questions about recipes that I'll be making for Thanksgiving at Dr. Miller and ours get together, and this is definitely one that we will be fixing. And so here's what we're going to need, and I will have the recipe and the ingredients list below if you would like to see that. It's also in the book. So for our lentil loaf base, we are going to need 2 cups of cooked green or brown lentils. And one thing I love about the book, something that I said it has to go in the book, is I have a way to cook all the simple starchy staples. So right here, you can see I've got the full list of beans, lentils, rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, squash, how to cook it in various ways. So if you have a stovetop, if you have an oven, if you have a pressure cooker, if you have a slow cooker, all the different ways you can cook them. That is one of the things that I said needs to be in the book because that's going to help everyone. So I have 2 cups of cooked brown lentils that I have cooked in my Instant Pot for 10 minutes with 3 cups of water to 1 cup of dry lentils. Next, I have 1 cup of quick cooking oats. I then have 1 cup of brown rice, which I used the recipe for cooking in the pressure cooker as well from the book. And then we have our seasonings, which are 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of dried sage, 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme, 1/2 teaspoon of ground black pepper, and then to give this a little bit of rise, we have 1/2 of a teaspoon of baking powder. We also have 1/4 of a cup of vegetable broth, and then 1/4 of a cup of my sweet and tangy ketchup, which is also in the book, but if you don't have the book yet, you can use any store-bought ketchup or another homemade recipe that you'd prefer. And then we have our glaze, but we'll get to that in a second. So step 1 is we have the oven preheated to 400 degrees, which we've already done. Now in a large bowl, just like this one, I'm going to add in all of my base loaf ingredients. So we have the 2 cups of cooked lentils, 1 cup of quick cooking oats. If you don't have quick cooking oats, can you use normal old-fashioned rolled oats? You certainly can. You're just going to have to mix them a little bit. Or if you just have old-fashioned rolled oats on hand, you can always throw them in the blender for a few seconds, pulse them, and they'll break down a little bit. Then we have 1 cup of that cooked brown rice, our seasonings, our vegetable broth, and our ketchup, which you could also use, say, a barbecue sauce if you wanted to give it a barbecue flavor. You could add in a little bit of liquid smoke if you'd prefer, but hey, this is the recipe, this is the Homestyle Lentil Loaf, and this is what we're going with. Next, we're just going to mix it all together until it has formed a kind of a patty consistency, or a consistency that sticks together or looks like you would expect a loaf to look like. So I'm just going to use this wooden spoon and get to mixing. And that looks good. And I like to say if I can just hold it down there, turn the bowl over and it sticks, that's pretty good. So now we have a baking pan or a loaf pan. You could use a glass loaf pan. I would say if you're not, this is a nonstick silicone baking dish. If you are going to use glass, you might want to put parchment paper down on top of that to keep it from sticking to the baking dish. So we're going to add this in. You can see they're very loaf-like. And while I was mixing, I did realize I didn't say, if you do have a stand mixer or you have a food processor, you can mix this in your stand mixer or food processor. But since not everybody has that, I like to just make it in a bowl with a spoon. You get a little bit of a better workout too, right? Okay, so I've pushed this down. I didn't smash it down to where it's extremely tight in there, but just enough to where we're not going to have any big air pockets. Looks really good. Now, a rule of thumb that I like with almost any baking dish is I don't like to fill it up more than 3/4 the way full, because then you can get it to come over top, or it'll be too heavy and kind of weigh itself down. So right there's about filling up 3/4 of my baking dish. Next, we've got our glaze, and our glaze is a really simple recipe. It is 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, 1 tablespoon of tomato paste or tomato puree, and then a half a tablespoon of maple syrup. So it's sweet, it's got a little bit of tang, a little bit of acidity from that tomato and from the balsamic vinegar. And I'm going to use the other end of my wooden spoon to mix it all together. And it should be kind of a syrupy consistency. Awesome. And we're going to pour it over top. And if you have a brush, you can use that. You can also just use a spoon. We just want to cover the full top of our dish so it browns nicely. We create a nice glaze and a nice top layer. That looks fantastic. If that doesn't scream Thanksgiving or holidays, I don't know what will. Well, you know what? Something will, I guess, when it's cooked, it'll look even better. So now we are going to transfer it into the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes or until the top has browned nicely and you can stick a knife or a toothpick through it without getting anything out. So we'll be back once that's done to give it a try. Our 30-minute timer just went off. Let's see how it turns out. Oh my goodness. The smell that just came out of the oven was beyond amazing. If that doesn't look like holiday in a pan, I don't know what will. You will want to let it cool down before you slice it up, but since we're all watching here, I'm going to slice it up for us, or at least get one slice for me to taste. But before you serve, you do want to let it sit and chill for a few minutes. But we're going to take a nice slice right off the edge. Amazing. Set that down there. That is just looks fantastic. And again, when you do cook it, before you take it out of the oven and stop cooking it, you're going to want to stick a sharp knife down there or a toothpick to just make sure that it's cooked all the way through, and then let it sit for around 20 minutes to cool off a bit. You can cover it, but you just want it to firm up as it cools. Let's go ahead and give it a try. This is piping hot, if you can see, but we'll give her a go. All I have, sliced, great. That is so delicious. One of my favorite things to cook now. And again, one of my favorite recipes in the new book, The Plant-Based Diet for Beginners, my Homestyle Lentil Loaf on page 94. If you haven't checked out the book, please do. It is the handbook I wish I would have had to give to my family when they first began adopting a plant-based diet. And honestly, it is the cookbook and the informational book that is going to help you fill up on healthy plant-based foods without filling out. I really hope you guys give this one a try. Please let me know in the comments down below if you've ordered the book, if you plan on ordering it, if you're going to give it to someone as a gift, and if you're going to try my Homestyle Lentil Loaf. This is such a great recipe. I hope everybody gives it a try and lets me know how you like it. So, for today's recipe video, I am Plant-Based Gabriel. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in another video very soon.